So, Keith, we're just relatively fresh back from the London and Palo Alto Telco 2 executive brainstorms. And we're here today to talk a little bit about mobile broadband. One of the things that struck me was there's a very different feeling about the marketplace than there was perhaps a year ago, where everyone was concerned about capacity and kind of accelerating volumes. That really seems to have changed, and people seem to be much more focused on commercial challenges now. Would you agree with that?
To a certain degree. There's still a lot of discussion about the technical challenges, but I believe what's becoming more apparent are some of the commercial challenges. And my own view is that it's time that the operators moved on and focused in on getting adoption, usage and revenues up. Some of the data that I've seen recently about the state of the UK market isn't that heartening. So 12 months ago, there was roughly 200,000 mobile broadband contracts being sold per month in the UK.
And this is dongles, that kind of thing?
Yes, so it's dongles, embedded 3G, it's not smartphone plans. Today, there's roughly 150,000 of them. They've stayed roughly in the same proportion prepaid to contract. But to see a drop in those connections at such an early stage of the market, okay, we're beyond early adopter, but we're not seeing a S-curved type of sort of adoption. We're more or less seeing a Gartner hype cycle type thing. And this is really worrying at the time that the tablets are taking off. So, you know, we published a piece of research about 3 months ago looking at the tablets phenomena and the effect that it have. And I think we came up with a forecast of about 400 million install base of tablets, of which 50% would be Wi-Fi only, and the rest would be roughly split between prepay and contract. Well, in the last quarter, we saw in the UK about 250,000 tablets being sold, but there was only 33% of those being sold with a 3G module. So that's not attach rates. That's not people who's committed to buy them on a contract or even topping them up.
Capable of having it, really.
Capable, so it's not attach rate. And I think some of these features are pretty worrying. Yeah.
So really, it's a challenge, and in particular in the tablets instance, about making the mobile part of the connectivity more relevant.
Exactly.
And you know, we were talking about Wi-Fi recently and the value of that, you know, the impact of that on spectrum value and so forth. Is this another effect of that? Is it the nature of the devices, or both? You know, the fact that tablets aren't necessarily a hugely mobile device and more of a portable device.
I think without going into deep dive on the figures, it's obvious that some operators are just focusing on smartphones and selling data plans for smartphones. And that's fair enough if that's their strategy, but I think long term, that's pretty dangerous. I think we have to focus on, as an industry, on getting 3G and 4G modules embedded within as many of these devices as possible. You know, like way back in the day when Wi-Fi was being sold as a PC card, the take-up was very poor and it did fall off a bit in the Wi-Fi space. What actually drove adoption was when Intel came out with the Centrino and the Wi-Fi inside, and the consumers didn't have to worry about Wi-Fi hardware. It was there. And I think the industry should be looking and making a big effort on putting 3G embedded, and it's a huge supply chain effort from the chip makers to the OEMs. But you know, I think a lot more effort on that.
So there's the question of getting 3G embedded, which is the long game.
Yeah.
In the what are the sort of short game options, the tactical commercial options they've got to be doing?
Okay, so the tactical commercial things are, first of all, how do you make it easier for somebody who's got a 3G embedded tablet or PC to sign up for data plans. I don't think we've got that right. If you look at how a iPhone or iPad is activated, there's obviously some communication going back and forth with Apple, but at the same time, really, we should be selling data plans, either prepaid or contract ones that can be added. So that whole activation process can be made a lot easier for people. And I think the Wi-Fi connection managers are so much easier than the 3G connection managers. As an industry, we've got to do something about that. It's not as simple as it sounds, because you've got to have SIMs there and you've got to change the provisioning of the SIMs. But for that, people tasting and sampling 3G for the first time, that activation process needs to be a lot easier.
So there's some innovation in the sense of in the process of how people go about getting 3G type options, but there's also innovation needed from a pricing point of view, in the sense of making it more attractive and more easy to have, and more desirable to a degree.
So the easiest way, I think, is the Kindle, where you've got the comes with data plan, and effectively the operators are selling wholesale data to Amazon. Now, I admit that that's a lot lower margin, and they probably want better retail things. So there's that whole sort of thing of how do you make it attractive? You know, the operators have all the details of who's got iPhones, trying to sell iPads into that base through their own channel, you know, trying to expand through third-party channels and getting them signed up, selling data plans with them. All that sort of commercial go-to-market, if you like, strategies needs to be looked at quite heavily.
So it almost feels like a year ago people were concerned about it taking off and wiping out the network. And actually now what they've got to be concerned about is it going a bit quicker, frankly, because they could be doing better. They are finding the technical solutions, as we alluded to at the beginning, and they can be doing a better job of this.
Yeah, the worst thing that could happen is you enter a phase, you know, tablets at the moment are very much an early adopter. But if you go into the mass market with tablets, and people are not expecting them to be used on the move or in a nomadic manner outside of the home with 3G, that's terrible. It's a massive missed opportunity. We've still got all that option with laptops, and, you know, data cards have been around for a while, dongles have been around for a while, and to be honest, I don't see that much innovation going on in the sort of like activation, sign up, making things easier. And then you've got all sorts of bundling type strategies that you can adopt. Last year we were seeing a lot of debates over whether tethering was going to be successful. Well, to me, it sounds obvious that I, as a customer of a mobile operator, can buy a 1 gig, 2 gig, 4 gig plan. And does it really matter whether I'm using it on my phone, on my tablet, or my laptop? Not really, I would argue. So there's innovations that can be done in those sorts of business plans to make buckets, you know, move beyond the individual to family plans, move beyond the family to business plans. There's all sorts of pricing and bundling strategies that can make mobile data more attractive.
That's very interesting. And just finally, to conclude, what do you think is coming next? What do you think we might be saying in a year's time?
Well, I hope we're not saying about the missed opportunities. I fear for that. But I see some indications and some movements in some of the operators that are really starting to think about, if we invest in 4G spectrum, we've got to start getting revenues up to justify that spectrum and the network build out. And I think they'll be forced to be more innovative in the commercial space.
So really, what we're saying is you've got to make 3G work harder. It's not a question of unblocking it. It's really you've got to make it work harder. You've got to make it more profitable and more attractive to move the business forward.
Yeah, and to justify those 4G investments.
Keith, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.